Hello, YouTube. It's Celeste of Astrology by Celeste, and I'm here talking about the astrology of Madonna's health crisis. But first, I want to let you know that I am having a Venus retrograde workshop on Saturday, July 1st. It's going to be at 9 a.m. Pacific time, and it's going to be held on Zoom. It's a 2-hour workshop. So to help you prepare, stay present, and thrive through this really important transit, Venus will be retrograde from July 2nd till September 3rd. So topics she rules topics the planet rules will have some reversals. We'll see reoccurrences of previous situations, delays, the destruction of anything contemplated, and some other things like that. And Venus will be in Leo. And this is going to be an exciting transit. I hope a lot of people have a lot of fun throughout it. Some people are going to have surprise pregnancies. So, this is not a time to play around with your birth control if you don't want to be a mother or a father. Yeah. And yeah, there's going to be all sorts of stuff. I'll talk about it in the workshop on Saturday. So register. You can go to astrologybyceleste.com to register for the workshop. It's only $22. And yeah, and if you can't make it live, you'll get the recording. But if you come live, what I do is I will try to spend at least an hour of the 2 hours doing hot take chart readings for people so they can see how this is going to come up in their life. But I'd like to do my teaching too. So we'll see what the balance is. Yes. Also, I'm one of the 5 powerhouse women for Synchronicity University. If you sign up by tomorrow, which is June 30th, you get 5 workshops for $5 each. So you can go to synchronicityuniversity.com. I'm going to be talking about eclipses, and this ties into Madonna's chart. Eclipses are turning points, and sometimes they land like unnoticed. Sometimes it feels like just a little snowflake sprinkling. Sometimes it's like an avalanche. Sometimes it's the jackpot at the end of the rainbow. But yeah, but no matter what, they're always impacting us. And yeah, in our chart, it depends how they're hitting our chart by how impactful they are. But anyway, let me get to Madonna. So, because I have things to do. Yes, I do. I have to finish my slides for my workshop. Yes. Okay. Hello. If you have any comments, or questions, you can drop them in the comments section and I will add them at the end. Okay, so here is the natal chart we have for Madonna. First, I need to let you know that this chart is considered dirty data, meaning the time, there are conflicting times out there for her birth time, and that or it may have been rectified by an astrologer. But looking at this chart and knowing a lot of about Madonna, I, I think it sure explains this event. I mean, she's so famous. There's so much information about her life out there that what happens with rectification is you take a bunch of events from someone's life and you can back calculate their chart. So I'll try to not focus too much on the houses because the degrees may be a bit off, and the houses are the places in life where the action takes place. But all of the planets should be accurate because most of them don't change on a birthday, within one day, except the moon, which, but no matter what, she's got a Virgo moon. Yeah, that's my caveat, that this is considered dirty data. Some astrologers won't even talk about a chart if it's dirty data, but I am going to. Yes, I am. And yeah, so what has happened with Madonna, if for anyone who does not know, is that on Saturday, June 24th, she collapsed in her hotel room, or she was found unresponsive and rushed to the hospital, had to be intubated. And it's been reported that she has a bacterial infection. And what else has been reported has been that she has been working her tail off in order to prepare for a concert series or tour that was supposed to begin on July 15th. This is part of Venus retrograde, the reversals. She, because of her health crisis, is going to have to postpone her tour. Venus or retrogrades delay. A music tour is a recreational event. That's a Leo topic as well as a Venus topic. Yeah, so the tour is delayed. Anyway, it's so interesting. I don't know which week it was with the Celestials Insights podcast. Oh, I said, you know what I said? I said Venus square Uranus, which is happening on Sunday. It was this week's podcast. It must have been. I said like something about an entertainer like having to delay because they got sick. I thought maybe Taylor Swift popped into my head because um, she's got a Scorpio rising. Yeah, and Taurus on the descendant, and Uranus is in Taurus. I thought it may be her but no, it's Madonna. Anyway, yes, this is exactly what, yeah, very interesting. Anyway, let me try to stay on track and not go off on my tangents. Okay. So anyway, it's Madonna, it's not Taylor Swift. Um, and where did I leave off? Yeah. But apparently she has not been feeling well it was reported for weeks, maybe even a month. She's had a fever that she's ignored and kept, driving herself because she has this tour that she wants to launch. Yeah. And she's 64 years old. She's in a fifth house year. And this is a technique called perfections. It's a very simple traditional technique that can be very helpful and accurate. Anyway, that means her fifth house. Oh, I said I wasn't going to focus on the houses, but I'm going to right now. That would mean Saturn rules her fifth house. Okay, so this is important as we go along. But let's just take a step back and just some highlights and my hot takes on Madonna's chart. Yes. So she's a sun in Leo. Yes, she is. I hope people can see this clearly. The reason, the reason I have all this big chart up here is because there's some key things I wanted to say about her chart. Let me hit those and then I'll get into her into her things. So anyway, I don't know if you can really see it clearly, but there's 2 days after she was born, there was an eclipse at 28 degrees of Aries, a solar eclipse. Now, this year on April 19th, 20th, depending on where you live, we had a solar eclipse at 29 degrees of Aries. So there was a repeat of her natal solar eclipse. We talk about the prenatal, but this is close enough to be a prenatal. It was 2 days after she was born. So it's almost like, in my opinion, she's had like a bit of a rebirth. Yeah. And this also explains, people who are born on eclipses, their lives can be their charts are very sensitive to eclipses, and their lives can take on a big degree of fatedness. And you can obviously, with Madonna, she's one of the most famous people in the world. Um, let me switch to just so you can see it bigger. Her chart. Yeah, this is just her chart. That I wanted to talk about. Okay, so let's talk about Madonna. So she's got a Leo sun, and the Leo is a sign of the performer, it's the sign of royalty. And this is why one of the things we knew we were going to have a lot of people who are celebrities or royalty or people who are or Leos will be in focus this coming next couple of months with the Venus retrograde, especially like celebrities. Yes. So she's a Leo sun, which speaks to her being, being having that bright light. Now, it's thought with this chart that her sun is in the 12th house, even though she's really upfront and she there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. She's thought to be a Virgo rising based on birth times she's given or that or people have got given or have been rectified. And Virgo is a sign of precision and detail orientation, and it's an earth sign. She is one of the hardest working people on the planet, and she also has a moon in Virgo, and she has her Mars in Taurus. So moon trine Mars. She is a workaholic and a perfectionist. You can see it in her chart. Now, Mars is in fall. Excuse me. Mars is in detriment in the sign of Taurus. It's at home in Scorpio and Aries, in detriment in Taurus and Libra. But in Taurus, Taurus is the bull who can just plow the fields forever, and just keep on, keep on, keep on working. And it's in detriment because you can get so focused on the work that there can be burnout. And she has a lot of fire in her chart. So she has her sun, her Uranus, and Venus in fire in Leo. So fire and earth can be like the ultimate manifester, which she obviously is, but fire and earth can be like burnout, especially with her Mars in the sign of Taurus. That also speaks about her sensuality and like loving sex. I mean, she did a book called Sex and all of that kind of stuff. So she's very motivated by the physical pleasure and sensual nature. Yeah. And Sun in Leo, her Sun is and domicile in the sign of Leo. So at home, has ease and comfort with being this celebrity. Yeah, you can see that. But really, emotionally, she is driven for perfection, for detail orientation, for yeah, and the sun, the sun in her 12th house, I think also has to do with in the sign of Leo, her self undoing. She's so motivated by attention and fame that it's to her detriment. She also has Venus. See her Venus at 0 degrees of Leo. When people 0 and 29 are 20 critical degrees of the signs. And so that also speaks to you'd see a lot of famous people with planets at 0 or 29. Yeah. And so she has her Venus at 0 degrees, square her Neptune in Scorpio at 2 degrees yeah, at 2 degrees. So she has a very tight Venus square Neptune. And so that can be Venus is about what we love and desire. She loves being famous. She also loves beauty. She's very focused on the aesthetics and the looks of things. And she's like a fashion created all these fashions. So Venus square Neptune, she's a fashion icon at the time. Well, not anymore, but when she was in her heyday, she was. Also, all that plastic surgery. People with Kim Kardashian has Venus square Neptune too. People so focused, like their beauty, their looks are their religion, or they idealize. Neptune is like spirituality, idealization. Neptune is the planet of illusions and delusions. She's so concerned with like looking a certain way that she's done all these surgeries and things like that. And also, she is magnetic. She has the ability to hold people's attention with that Venus square Neptune. Venus and Leo, the sign of the performer, the celebrities, square Neptune, and the sign of like sexuality and all of that kind of stuff. Scorpio, like she's a very, she was in her heyday a very sexy woman. Yes. Okay. So those are some things I just wanted to point out about her chart. Yeah. And oh, she has the North Node. This is the North Node of Destiny on the fixed star Spica. Spica is a star of success. She also, and it's at 24 degrees of Libra. She has Jupiter, the planet of wealth and abundance, within 2 degrees of Spica. So it's no surprise that she's this very wealthy star. And Libra's a sign of fashion. She was such a trendsetter. Yeah, you can really see that in her chart. Yeah. And one thing, so astrology is all about timing. It's a map of your life. And when your chart is activated is when things pop into our lives. So on 2 days before but 2 days after she was hospitalized, but the transits were already in effect, was Mars square Uranus in the sky. And she has Mars in Taurus square Uranus in Leo, and the reverse was happening in the sky. Mars in Leo was squaring Uranus in Taurus at 21 degrees, right on. So her sun, let me just put the chart up rather than talk about it. So this is when she was rushed to the hospital with a bacterial infection. Mars in the sky was at 3 degrees from her sun on that day, but it moved a degree. So within 2 degrees of her sun, which is her vitality, her her identity, her essence, her vitality. Mars is a planet that separates, it cuts. It's considered a malefic because she was born during the day. It's her greater malefic. And square Uranus, a sudden event. Uranus breaks things. It's like she was found unconscious in her hotel room. So I think she still lives in London. But who do I know? What do I know? She has houses all over the world. So she was maybe traveling from home. Yeah, she was away from home. The ninth house is the house of long distance travel when this happened because she was in it said a hotel room. Yeah. Mars square Uranus, a sudden event that caused a health crisis. Yeah, Mars is accident. Yeah, Mars is problems. Mars is fevers. She's had a fever for a month and was ignoring it and kept on working. So, but this is the crisis point. Yes. So in the sky, what was also happening is Saturn, and at the never mind about that. Yeah. Saturn at 7 degrees of Pisces stationed to go retrograde, and Saturn, it's moving really slow. And this is her ascendant is thought to be 8 degrees of Virgo, the descendant 8 degrees of Pisces, Saturn conjunct the descendant, opposing her. Saturn and Pisces, hardship, a crisis due to Pisces and infection. So that makes total sense as well. So yeah, when people when people have health crises, often Saturn is on their ascendant or squaring their sun or opposite their ascendant, because the ascendant is vitality. Yeah. So and Saturn separates us from things. Saturn is like a heavy, wet blanket. Yeah. So she's been separated from her vitality during this crisis. Yeah. Saturn brings controls, restrictions, limitations, boundaries. She's learning about the boundaries of her abilities and vitality. She's not 25 anymore. She's 64 years old. Yeah, and as I mentioned earlier, it's a fifth house year. So Saturn transits are especially important when on during this time. Yes. And also some things I wanted to say. You see how Neptune is here at 1 degrees of Scorpio? It's conjunct excuse me, the south node, which is a drain, is at 1 degrees of Scorpio conjunct her Neptune at 2 degrees of Scorpio. So this is classic, an infection. South node conjunct her natal Neptune in Scorpio, a water sign as well that, it can be associated with yeah, it'll be interesting where the infection started. Like Scorpio's the bowels, it's like genital stuff, and yeah, there's a lot of things. It doesn't matter. Okay. And I did say on the podcast weeks ago, I thought maybe Madonna would be in focus during Venus retrograde, because when Venus went into Leo, it was opposed Pluto, the planet of catastrophe. Pluto unearths things. Pluto burns things down to the studs in order to be rebuilt. So when she had her Venus return, and we can look at that chart, because she has a 0 degree Venus, um, it was opposite Pluto. So this next year and a half, that's going to be kind of echoing in her until her next Venus return. It's not a year and a half exactly, but it's, oh yeah, it might be a year and a half because of retrograde. Whatever, it's over a year away. That Venus opposite Pluto is going to be reflect like reverberating in her chart, and Venus opposite Pluto squared Jupiter. She has had to postpone her tour, so that means there's going to Jupiter rules wealth, Jupiter in Taurus. We can look at her Venus return real quick. And Venus rules money, beauty, all sorts of things. Let's see. Let's look at her Venus return, natal. And she's going to have Venus. Okay. Here's her Venus return for this year. Venus, look at this. Yeah. So a return chart you can cast for when the planet returns to where it was when you were born, and it gives you a flavor of what is going on. So looking at this chart now, it depends. I'm not going to get into the houses in case her birth chart is a little off. Venus opposite Pluto square Jupiter. So Venus ruling money, up and like a concert, opposite a world tour, an entertainment venture, a big venture. Venus and Leo opposite Pluto in Aquarius. All these people probably have bought tickets. Square Jupiter in Taurus. And Jupiter releases in Scorpio, and look at the North Node conjunct Jupiter, like releases into the South Node in Scorpio. She's got this drain on her energy due to an infection, which is going to impact this. And then, I mean, she's probably going to be having coming to Jesus moments. And look at this. Look at this. 15, the sun in the sky at the time of her Venus return was at 15 degrees of Gemini. And this was right around the full moon. It was right after the full moon. Yes. Okay. And this is important. If we put the Venus return on the date of this Venus return on her chart. So she knew she was sick back here. Yeah. So this is the Venus return outside her natal chart. The sun is on her Hygeia in Gemini. The Hygeia is the asteroid of public health. And when your Hygeia is activated, it can be indicative of a health problem. And the full moon was on June 3rd. Her Venus return was on June 5th. Um, and the sun was at 13 Gemini, the moon at 13 Sagittarius. So the sun was shining on her Hygeia. She knew something was wrong with her. She probably had, it's thought she had this fever for a month. Yeah. But she ignored it and just kept on working. And moon was in Sagittarius, optimistic view. Oh, I can just keep going. I can do it. The moon was trying her Uranus. Um, yeah, she made impulsive decisions to just keep to power through because she doesn't want to disappoint her fans or whatever, or doesn't know her limitations on her vitality. Yeah, or doesn't want to deal with them. Yeah. So so that was very interesting. Also, I wanted to show you the new moon. New moon seed things in our lives and the lunar phase. Now, okay. New moons seed things in our lives. Okay. So before I do that, let me just see. If we look at, oh, and so Venus rules her second house of her income and her finances. So if assuming this chart is right, as I said, it's dirty data, it's rectified, but it's looking pretty accurate. And her ninth house of long distance travel, higher wisdom, all that kind of stuff. But this is about her money. Yeah. And she has Venus in the 11th natally. Interesting. Okay. She makes money from the collective. Yeah. Okay. So this is the new moon outside her chart. Okay. So the new moon on June 18th was at 26 degrees of Gemini. And so I wonder if it's a lung infection because I wonder if it's something to do with the lungs or some other Gemini kind of thing. Um, yeah, she has Aquarius on the sixth house of things that go wrong with your health. And I believe Aquarius in medical astrology has to do with the circulatory system, but don't quote me. You can Google it if you want to know. Look at that. Chiron in Aquarius in the sixth house. I wonder if it's something to do with her lungs, but Virgo rising, that's Virgo rules the intestines. Yeah. What I don't know. Yeah. But anyway, this new moon was at 26 degrees of Gemini in a square with her 26th degree of Virgo part of fortune. And the part of fortune is a calculation that has to do with the sun, the moon, and the ascendant. So this is another reason why I think her chart is right. This rectified or whatever chart is right. Because boom, direct hit to the part of fortune. The part of fortune has to do with our fortune in life as well as our physical well-being. So, and part of fortune, Neptune is opposite the part of fortune. So the new moon square Neptune in Pisces, again, you get this echo of an infection. Pisces and Scorpio are very associated with infections. A T square, yep, that releases in the fourth house of potentially the grave. Thankfully, she's recovered and gotten this she could have died. So hopefully, this next time frame is going to be her dealing psychologically with the fact that she almost died. And you can see, so Venus is going to station to go retrograde near her Pluto, but at 28 degrees of Leo, back to 12 degrees of Leo, right on her Uranus. And look at this new moon, Venus on Uranus. So, yeah, it was at 11 degrees. So the shadow period of this Venus retrograde started right about this new moon. So people will be having things that were seeded around June 18th coming up for review between now and September 3rd, when Venus goes direct. So yeah, this next several months is going to be interesting for people whose charts were seated. Now, not everyone is going to have a bad thing happen, but yeah. So, and Venus is going to square her Mars 3 times. So she may try to like, oh, I'm just going to perform. We're going to just delay this. I'll get back to this. And she may try to just power through it and keep going. But Mars is coming to her ascendant. Yeah. And yeah, so she could be have relapsing, fighting to get back at it, or maybe she'll understand, I just have to cancel this tour and, focus on her health. We'll see what happens. But yeah, anything else I wanted to say about that? Yeah. Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward. You see how this new moon seeded her health issue, seeded the health issue becoming apparent. And there's going to be a full moon next week at 11 degrees of Capricorn. So that will be in her fifth house, where the sun will be in her 11th house of, the audience. The moon will be in the fifth house of entertainment, things we do for joy. I'm sure she loves performing, because why would she do it if she didn't? Um, yeah. And in a trine with her natal moon, and the moon is our environment. It has to do with our physical body. She has the moon in the first house, which also speaks to her popularity. So there's going to be, they're going to be telling her stuff about her vitality and her health. She may choose to ignore it or not, but yeah, this Venus retrograde is in fact like a lot about Madonna, and I hope she, recovers fine. I'm sure her health in general is excellent, but for whatever reason she got this th- this well, I'm not sure her health is excellent. I assume, I know she's like exercises like a maniac and whatever, does a lot of all of that. But Neptune tomorrow stations to go retrograde. So she could, you know what? One thing, sometimes artists do their best work when Neptune is retrograde. Carol Rushman has said this. She's has a beautiful, wonderful book about the art of predictive astrology. I mean, I haven't studied Neptune retrogrades enough to have any real data, but she said she's noticed her clients she works with, or when she worked with a lot of celebrities, artists, and all of this kind of stuff, is my understanding, that they do their best work during Neptune retrograde. So maybe I think she writes some of her music. Maybe she'll do a lot of really creative stuff with the Neptune retrograde. Yeah. But yeah, you can see Saturn's opposite Mercury, her Mercury in Virgo. So Mercury in Virgo, so Virgo could be something intestinal, or Mercury rules the lungs. Mercury also rules like tubes in the body. So it could be some kind of tube in her body is where the infection is. I mean, I don't know, but she really needs to take care of herself and understand her limitations. And I hope she will so that she can, have a speedy recovery. Let's see, are there any comments? Let's see if anybody made comments. Oops, I hid the chat. Yes. Ah, oh, hi, Megan. So nice to see you. Yeah, yeah, KJ. So nice to see you. Yes. So, yeah, so I wish her all the best. Like back in the day, like I was a kid when she became famous, and I remember dancing to her first hit, Holiday, at my junior high school. Like I can see us on the grass, like after school one day, like dancing to Holiday. I went to one of her concerts at one point, and yeah, I loved her music over time. Yeah. And bitch, she's Madonna. So wishing her all the best. And yeah, come to my Venus retrograde workshop. It's this Saturday, July 3rd, if you want to learn more about the retrograde and how to prepare, stay present, and thrive through it. What we're going to see in your own life and what we're going to see in the collective. And I'll do hot takes on people's charts. And if you see this too late and miss it, you can buy the workshop from my website, astrologybyceleste.com. Take good care of yourself. And yeah, thanks for watching. I so appreciate you. Check out the Celestial Insights podcast. I talked about this transit. Venus square Uranus is coming up this weekend. So stay present to surprises, surprise gifts. Hopefully nobody who doesn't want to break up will break up a relationship, but it could be really nice. Okay, take care.